So, good morning, everybody. And before I dive in with my professional, serious intro, I just want to say that Amber is joining us for, I think, the fourth time. She's the most experienced parks educator we've ever had on. And I said to her, the only big difference between our past programs and this one was our groovy intros, and that she should totally dance while we do it. So, Amber, I'll bring you on for a sec just to say thank you for dancing along with me that whole intro. That was awesome. Okay, that's your sneak peek at Amber for a sec. Welcome in, everybody, to another amazing Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. We've got a big new audience today, so if you're joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And of all days, I'm so happy you're catching us today. Today really epitomizes what we're all about. We just wrapped up with an amazing CRISPR scientist. We wrap up later today with a Pioneers of the Possible amazing series, and smack dab in the middle, English-French back-to-back, we are on our Parks Adventure series. Now, for 5 years now, we have partnered with the amazing folks at Parks Canada to feature some of the most incredible stories of their parks, reserves, incredible centers, coast to coast to coast across this country. They are some of the most special places, not just here in Canada, but truly around the world. And we are in Quebec today at Mingan Archipelago National Park Reserve. I can speak English. And I'm so excited. We are going to get to explore life at the lighthouse today with the groovy Amber Gibson. You guys are in for such a treat. It's a beautiful day. Last time we went out to this island, it was I swear, hurricane force, hail, winds. There was a cow flying through the air. The puffins were everywhere. And today it's sunny and beautiful. And Amber, I couldn't be happier for you and for us. And without further ado, if you want to take us away on a journey, you can go right ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Yeah, a beautiful day here in the Mingan Archipelago National Park Reserve. My name is Amber. I'm a public education and outreach officer for Parks Canada. And we're here in the Mingan Archipelago. The most beautiful day of the season that I've been out so far. So excited to be with you. An archipelago. An archipelago means lots and lots of islands. So here in the Mingan Archipelago, we've got roughly 1,000 islands and islets that make up this National Park Reserve. And today we are here live on Petite Île Marteau, which translates to Small Hammer Island. Now, archipelago, we're on an island, and we're going to be exploring a lighthouse and the lighthouse stations today. You might ask, if we've got 1,000 islands and islets in the Mingan Archipelago, why did we decide to put a lighthouse on this island specifically? There's a few reasons for that. The main one is traffic. I've got to give you a little bit of background to fully understand why we've got this lighthouse here on the island. So Havre-Saint-Pierre, which is the closest town on the mainland, was founded in 1857 by 6 families, and only 10 years later, there was 82 families that had settled there, and the only access to this town at the time was by boat. So you've got hundreds of sailboats, of fishermen, of lots of different people coming in and out of these islands that are navigating around these waters. And it's a pretty hard terrain to navigate, the waters around the Mingan Archipelago. There's large rocky outcrops that are really hard to see sometimes, and they'd be navigating them sometimes at night and sometimes in the fog. So lots of traffic around here. And with lots of traffic, unfortunately, came shipwrecks. Now, the locals, they loved a good shipwreck. They would pick up all the items that would float up to the top from these shipwrecks. So we had the dishes shipwreck, we had the boots shipwrecked, we had the dishcloth shipwreck. However, with the boot shipwreck, funny story, at the time, they were worried about people stealing the boats, so they would ship all the left boots together and all the right boots together. So we just had a bunch of left boots that shipwrecked here. But anyways, show you some shipwreck treasure a little bit later on. Lots of shipwrecks around here, about 21 in a very short period of time. So finally, in 1877, there was an official request sent to the government of Canada to build a lighthouse station on Petite Île Marteau to help with this problem. It took 38 years, so it wasn't until 1915, but 38 years later, after that request was submitted, the first lighthouse station was built here on Petite Île Marteau. Today, what we're going to do, we're going to explore the different buildings that are around this lighthouse station. I'm going to kind of talk to you about what life was like on the islands. And behind me right here, we can see 3 different buildings. We're going to go see all of them, and a few of them are actually going to be able to go inside. So our first building we're going to go inside, I'm going to flip my camera right here. We're going to go into the lighthouse stations. Oh, can I change it? Are you going to let me change it?
It's going to work. We believe
It's gonna
in it.
work. I have confidence in this camera. Let me switch it. Letting me turn it off.
Feel free to play with that for a sec. I'll just note as you're getting that working that this program, all our entire other Parks Adventure series is on our YouTube channel. So if you want to check them all out, there's going to be a playlist there for you all. You can head to the Parks Adventure page too. So lots to explore and discover. We've got 2 more amazing ones coming next week. And we've got the camera working now. So we can go into any building we like. Amber, that's awesome.
Amazing. All right. We can see that okay?
That is flawless. Couldn't be better.
Wonderful. So, standing outside the lighthouse keeper's house right now, and we're going to go inside. I've opened it all up for you guys in preparation. I've got some really cool stuff to show you. So, we'll go in here. And we've got this really 1960s style kitchen, which has been upgraded since the original residents lived here. And as you can also see, there's lots of tables and chairs in here right now, which sometimes we'll use for events here at the park. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off my radio because the boats are talking to each other right now. But what I really want to show you in here are some photos and talk about who lived here. So just to give you a bit of an idea. Oh, my goodness. I lost my... There we go. We're good. So who lived here? In this house, you had a lot of people living here at one time. You'd have the lighthouse keeper, you'd have his assistant, you'd have his family, and you'd have a teacher. And the first lighthouse keeper who lived here was making only $200 per pay. And this is a photo of them right here. So $200 per year. And with that, they would have to pay the assistant. They'd also have to pay the teacher who was coming to live on the island. So it was a really hard life living here. And they would have to take rowboats across from the mainland to get here. So it wasn't easy getting here by any means. Today I came here in a motorboat this morning. So it took about 15 minutes to get here from the mainland. But back in the day when they'd have to come across with a rowboat, it took a lot longer. And this person that we see in this rowboat right here is the second teacher who lived on the island with the families. In the wintertime, they'd have to transport all their supplies on the ice. Anything that was large, heavy construction materials, they would take it across on the ice. There was no radio and no electricity before 1969, so they would have to live on fish, on seafood. They'd have a garden, they'd have berries, they had hens, cows, all kinds of different farm animals too that would live with them. So here we've got our first family that lived here. And here we've got our final family that lived here back in the 80s. So as you can see, this photo is a little bit more modern than what we would see nowadays living here in this building. Now, there were 5 different lighthouse keepers, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them as we walk to our next stop. So we had Charles Boudreau. That's these guys right here. In this photo, I'll hold it up for you. Charles Boudreau, he was the lighthouse keeper from 1915 to 1933, and he had 7 kids. And I'm going to go through these also to explain a little bit about why this was a bit of a family affair. So he had an assistant, and his assistant was called Grégoire Cyr. And Grégoire Cyr then became the second lighthouse keeper, and he was there for 22 years, and he married Charles' daughter. So the lighthouse keeper's, the original lighthouse keeper's daughter became the second lighthouse keeper's wife. And it was their third child, Léonard, who became the third lighthouse keeper. Finally, coming to our 4th lighthouse keeper, he transferred from Anticosti Island. Let me see if I can show you Anticosti Island. I think we might be able to see it if we're lucky. Yes, we can. Are you able to see that on camera? Off in the distance, a shadow on the horizon? That right there is Anticosti Island. So if you look on a map of Canada and you see a big island kind of in the Gulf of St. Lawrence in the North Atlantic, that's what you're seeing right now. And Vital, the 4th lighthouse keeper, he was responsible for the lighthouses on Anticosti. And as he was getting older, he wanted to be a little bit easier. And so he transferred to this island to be a bit closer to the mainland. And finally, his son, Rosaire Boudreau, was the 5th lighthouse keeper on this island, and he was here until 1987. So ever since 1987, no one's been living in these buildings anymore. We're going to go down the side here, and I'm going to take you to our next building. all of this building, the lighthouse keeper's house, had to be renovated quite extensively in the last few years because it was a bit run down when Parks Canada took over these buildings in the 80s. However, they've been renovated and we can now get to visit them like we are today, which is a lot of fun. So the next building we're going to pass by is the garage. Now, the garage was only built in 1969, so it's a lot more recent. And the reason it was only built in the 60s is because they didn't need a garage before then. They had a horse that was responsible for pulling most of their large items and doing a lot of the heavy labor that they needed. And then in the 50s, late 50s, they got a tractor. And then they needed somewhere to store the tractor. Let me see if I can peek inside here. Not very well. But right now we're using it just to store some equipment. There's no tractor in there. We now have a big wagon in there that we can bring visitors to go see the islands when we have visitors come here. This, I think, is one of my favorite buildings on the islands. And unfortunately, we can't go in because it's quite... it's in a mode of construction, we'll say, on the inside. It hasn't been refurbished like the other buildings have. This was the assistant lighthouse keeper's house that was just built in 1952. So this one was built after. So before that, everyone was living in the main lighthouse keeper's house. So that was a lot of people living in this main house right there. We're going to go over now to our second of 3 lighthouses that have been on this island. And this one is my favorite. It is so, so beautiful. White and red and a classic looking lighthouse. This is what I imagine when I think of a lighthouse. Now, this is the second lighthouse that was built on the island. The first one was built pretty much in the same position that that assistant's house was. And it was built in 1915. It was a lamp that had 2 wicks up at the top with a big platinum reflector, and it was amplified by a glass lens. And on a good day, in really good weather conditions, you'd be able to see the light from that lighthouse for about 10 kilometers. This lighthouse right here that we're seeing was built in 1954. It has a light and 3 mirrors up there at the top in that red section where we see. And it was powered initially by propane, but then switched over to electric when we got electricity on the island. And because there's 3 mirrors up there, it means that there was 3 flashes of light that were visible. Now, I said that there was 3 lighthouses. We're going to see the third and final one. And most people don't necessarily think that this is a lighthouse when they see it. But if you look at that tower right there, that is the third lighthouse. And if you've got really good eyes and you look up at the top, you can actually see the light spinning right now. So it does still spin even in the daylight, because sometimes when it's foggy, you'll still need that light for navigation. And this third light was finally built in 1976. It uses solar panels and a generator that are going to power that lighthouse. So we've got solar panels right there. I'm going to go around the assistant's house to give you a bit of a better look here. Back at the assistant's house right here. Going around the corner, we'll go right up to it. This is our third lighthouse. So we've saw those solar panels, and you can see a large gray box behind the lighthouse. That's a generator that's still powering it. And it goes all the way up. It's really, really tall. And it might be a bit hard to see right now because the sun is in the shot. But this light is still running to this day. And even from my room at night, I can see the light going around this lighthouse. So really, really cool. Now, our fourth building, and this is one we're going to be able to go into. So we'll spend a little bit of time in there. This one is really, really cool. This is a multi-purpose building. And it was built in 1917. So this was actually one of the first, was the first building on the island. And initially it was just the foghorn building, but it does have a secondary use. And just while we're here, I'm going to just kind of pan over to the side just to give you a little bit of view, you can kind of see some rocks right there on the edge of the island. So we are really on the edge of Petite Île Marteau right now. And those rocks under the water extend pretty far. And that's what made navigation so difficult here. But turning back to our foghorn building, we're going to go in. I've already opened it up. Hopefully there's no birds inside because I see that they've opened the door a crack. In this first room, and hopefully it's not too echoey as well, in this first room in the foghorn building, this room was added on after the foghorn building was built because the second lighthouse keeper had 14 kids. 14. And so, of course, with having 14 kids on an island, you have to educate them. And they couldn't go to the mainland to school every day. So that's when they would have to hire a school teacher to come and teach on the island. And they had a pretty good view for a school. They had that beautiful lighthouse right out there. But that one wasn't there yet. It was still the first one. And you can see we've still got some original oil lamps in here. If we look around, it's a pretty small room with some storage. And the teacher, it was pretty bare bones. So they had their desk where they could sit. They would have a blackboard on the wall. They'd have some games. And then here I brought out some flashcards that are original from that time. This is dated at 1941. And this would have been used for a math lesson back in the 1940s. So pretty similar, actually, to what you might see in your classrooms nowadays. Same kind of concept for flashcards. The funniest part, though, about this schoolroom is that on foggy days, the kids couldn't go to school. The reason they couldn't go to school is because it's in the same building right beside the foghorn machinery. And when it was foggy, of course, they would have to be using the foghorn and all this machinery would be running. And it's so loud and so powerful that it would shake the walls of this building. So anything that the school teacher would have hanging up on the wall, including the blackboard, would just come falling down. So it was not possible on those days for them to be able to go to school. So if there's fog, school was canceled. Stepping in now to the foghorn room. And it still smells like a foghorn room. It still smells like machinery. I wish that I could give you smell-o-vision so you could smell it while we're in here. But what we're seeing right here are two generators. And these generators would fuel the diaphragm that would go out to this corner right here. And this was where the foghorn was. And it's hard to see from the inside right here. From here, it kind of just looks like a pile of red tubes. But once I take you around the back, you'll be able to better see that. This little gray compartment right here had oil to help run it initially. And then you had air compressors that were used to help power this as well. And the sound from this foghorn had to be very specific. So we even have the decree here on the wall. This is from 1932 that gives the exact instructions on how this foghorn should sound. So it had to go 2.5 seconds. It had to sound off for every 37.5 seconds. So every 37.5 seconds, you'd have 2.5 seconds of foghorn, and then a pause again, and then it would repeat. So initially powered by diesel engines, and then in 65, these generators were installed here. So these guys are a little bit more recent. These are from the 1960s. Excuse me. Had a bit of a cold lately. So let's head outside and I'll show you the actual foghorn, because as we go around to the back, we'll be able to see it really well. And I know we're already coming up onto 20 minutes. It goes so fast. Can't believe it. So running around the corner over here, if we're lucky, we might see some eider ducks as well. That's Quebec's largest duck species. Yes, look at all those eider ducks. So if you see those black and white specks and brown specks that are flying away right now, those are eider ducks. And right now they're getting ready to nest here on the island. So I'll try to not make too much noise and disturb them because we want them to feel safe here. So now we're on the outside of that wall where we were seeing those red tubes, all that red mechanics that were going out, and you can see the horn coming straight out of the wall. And that would be pointed out towards the ocean, out towards Anticosti Island. so that as many boats as possible would be able to hear it when they needed it. And we've got a nice view of the second lighthouse right there at the same time. Amazing. So I'm going to head back slowly to the center of this little area right here because we're going to get ready to answer some questions very, very shortly. However, I want to give you one last little story about life on the island here. So I mentioned that every lighthouse keeper had kids on this island. And we are 4 kilometers away from the island. And hopefully you can see those buildings on the horizon. Jesse, maybe you can confirm for me. Can you see those buildings over there on the horizon?
We see an island on the horizon and maybe little buildings if we're really squinting.
They are really, really small out there, but there are buildings. And one of those big buildings, the biggest one you can probably see, is a hospital. And it was a hospital even at that time. So when it was time for the lighthouse keeper's wife to go and give birth, she would go across the water 4 kilometers to the hospital. And there was no radio communication at the time. So the lighthouse keeper wouldn't know what was going on. And in order to find out if they had had the child, if it was a boy or it was a girl, at the top of the hospital, they would hoist up a flag, pink for a girl or blue for a little boy. And that's how the lighthouse keeper would find out that he had a new child. So definitely some adaptations to living out here on the islands. Now I'm going to come on back to these tables here. I'm going to set up my camera so that I can see you all again. And I think we'll be ready to go into our question period. Does that sound good, Jesse?
That sounds fantastic. You've got a little cold. I've got a little cold. We'll sniffle through it together. It's very exciting. Awesome. What a journey. So many places we got the chance to check out. And I love the hospital story and the foghorn school story. Those are spectacular. And we've got a ton of questions for you. So as you get set up, and feel free to switch your camera out, take a second. I'll put you in the background while we do that. I just want to note again, if you want to check out the full Parks Adventure series, this program is going to be in French immediately after this with my friend Alex. She's going to be hosting. So if you want to pass it along to your French colleagues, we'd love to have extra viewers for that. And then we've got 2 amazing programs coming next week with Sled Dogs, which is going to be super, super fun. And then Green Gables to wrap up our Parks Adventure series. They're all right there. They're all on our YouTube channel. So please do come on in and take a look. Amber, it looks like we're working on the camera.
We are. For some reason, when I was in background, I wasn't able to switch it around.
No worries.
So I'll go ahead and edit that.
Questions. What I'll do as you play with it is I'll share a first question, and it kind of relates to you being with the camera, which is, there we go. Hey, Amber. John at our Dalewood School wants to know, do you always have internet access, and how do you communicate? Like, this connection looks incredible. What's the deal?
So I don't always have internet connection. Petite Île Marteau, where I am right now, is one of the best internet connections that I have in the archipelago. And that's really because I'm only 4 kilometers south of the town. So that town right there is the main town in the entire area. So there is 5G set up in that town, but nowhere else in the 200 kilometer span of the archipelago is the connection this good. This is the best.
Sweet. Lucky us. And as I said, and it might be due to the weather last time, but this is way better than it was last time too. Like, it's just a glorious, perfect day for a live broadcast from outdoors in the field. So awesome question, guys. All right. So many great questions. Geez. How did men become lighthouse keepers? Now, you talked about this family passing it along through the generations, but if you weren't from a family of lighthouse keepers, is it just an application? Like, how do you possibly end up with such a cool role?
You did have to apply initially, and it was advantageous in a sense because you had a guaranteed salary. And that time, the main manner of making a living was fishing, which is not always a guarantee what you're going to catch in a day or in a season. So having a guaranteed income was really attractive to lighthouse keepers. And that's why many would want to apply for this. However, once you got in, as we saw with the first 3 lighthouse keepers, it became really a family matter. So, the assistant often would become the lighthouse keeper once the lighthouse keeper retired or moved on to a different position.
Cool. Very neat. Thanks for the question, guys. Miss Coburn's class also has another one. They've been studying heritage buildings as a class, and they want to know who pays for the upkeep. These look like really, really fantastic buildings. What's going on?
So most of the upkeep is covered by Parks Canada. There are some exceptions because with who owns a lighthouse in Canada isn't necessarily the same as who owns a heritage building. So the lighthouses are still upkept by a different department. However, the installations like the lighthouse keeper's house that we went into, those were renovated and are upkept by Parks Canada.
Yeah. And I've got to say, just because for our students' knowledge, like I've been to many Parks Canada sites, I've been to many parks historical sites, I've been to provincial parks in Ontario where I grew up, Newfoundland and beyond. And like, there's no better way to spend your money as a government and as a nation than to help make sure that we keep history alive through places like this. Like, it's so nice that we get to do a virtual tour of this, but if you get the chance to head to a place like this in person, it really is transformative. It links you back to the past in a really, really neat way. And so I'm really, really happy that we do things like this, because what a special place you get to explore today, Amber. This is awesome. All right. So many more questions. Okay. Our grade 8 students are heading into high school, and they want to know if Parks Canada has any volunteer opportunities for budding future educators like you or beyond.
Absolutely. I would encourage you to reach out to your local park, your local National Historic Site, because often at the individual park or National Historic Site level, they will have job and volunteer opportunities available. So if you've got one close to you, or you've got one in mind specifically that you would like to possibly volunteer at, reach out to them to ask them about their specific volunteer opportunities at their site.
Amazing. I just put the volunteer opportunities for Parks Canada in the chat. So if you're on YouTube and want to take a look, you couldn't have a better job ever. In fact, I will say universally, and I'm not just saying that because they're partnering with us, I've never run into a group of people that are more passionate about their jobs than Parks Canada employees. I've had the chance to work with them for 5 years now. Honestly, you'll never meet a more enthused, involved, dedicated group of people that are willing, like Amber did last year, to stand in a hailstorm, crazy rain, all this stuff to bring you stories from the field. It's a really, really enriching opportunity, so I can't recommend it enough. Great question, guys. All right. Isabella wants to know, does anyone stay on the island for any long period of time today? You talked about the fact that no one lives there anymore. Are there people that are on site for days, weeks, months, anything like that, or no?
On this island specifically, very, very rarely. We'll sometimes have some special activities that go on here on the island. However, on other islands that are very close by, some that we can even see kind of around me right now, there is camping that is available on those islands. So it is possible to come and stay on certain islands with a bunch of different ways that you can camp or stay in a cabin, or we even have a bed and breakfast on another island, which is the only other island with a lighthouse. But on this island specifically, people don't typically stay overnight anymore.
I think I'm getting on the next plane to come for the bed and breakfast. That sounds truly lovely. So there you are. Stay on the East Coast, coming here from Newfoundland. All right. Geez, so many great questions. You guys are an amazing audience today. Okay. Our kids are keen on how families and students particularly got medical attention. If someone had an issue, are they going back to the mainland? Is a doctor coming out to them? What's going on?
Typically, they would have to go back to the mainland to get medical care because the hospital was there, and often it was easier to bring them back there than to have a medical professional come here. So yeah, if your kid was sick or if someone was sick or injured, you have to row across, or in the wintertime, drive the horse across the ice to get to the hospital. And they're actually really lucky here that there was a hospital that was so close by, because many other areas and villages in our area do not have a hospital or medical staff that serve them. But you do have to be a little bit débrouillard en français, and you'd have to be a little bit have a little bit of knowledge in general, probably first aid skills, to be able to survive really well out here.
Yes, it's good to be hardy if you're a little bit far from a doctor, I think, in general. A question about going back to the mainland as well. So the summer comes along. Are the kids just given a bunch of chores to do? Do they get to go be on the mainland for any period of time? And by the way, what does that process look like? Is that just like a little boat that everybody has that they can go back lickety-split, or is it challenging? What's going on?
It looked a little bit different depending on what era we're in. So back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, it was a little wooden rowboat that they would take across, and that's what they would use. However, like the last lighthouse keeper that I showed you, Rosaire, he had a speeder. So he had a little speeder boat with gas that he would be able to take back and forth. And they would have vacations. They were allowed to have vacations, the lighthouse keepers, and especially the first lighthouse keepers that lived in the islands, they would usually go, funny enough, to another island for their 2 weeks of vacation.
Wouldn't necessarily be my first option if I lived on an island, but good for them for being very, very dedicated to that island lifestyle. Amber, this has been so much fun. Is there any final message you want to leave us with about the island, the lighthouse keepers, anything before we say goodbye to inspire our kids to further learning?
Do I have maybe 20 seconds to show our shipwreck treasure?
You've got, whoa. You've got tons of time to show our shipwreck treasure. Don't be silly, as long as you need.
I was keeping one of the things for last here. What I've got here is some treasure from one of the shipwrecks that wrecked really close to this island here. And from this wreck, this would have been the Dishes wreck. And on the back, it says Royal Albert, England. And one of our historians here at Parks Canada was able to acquire this. I'm not sure how, probably from a local who had it handed it down parent to child after so many years. But this is one of the real dishes that came from one of the shipwrecks on the islands. And it did unfortunately have an accident at some point because it has been repaired a little bit. But I wanted to make sure to show you at least one treasure from the shipwreck before we said goodbye.
Super, super cool. What a beautiful plate, man. I would like that today. That's just like one of the most beautiful plates I've ever seen. Cool.
Royal Albert's a pretty good brand. I think they're still around.
Very nice. Well done, Royal Albert. Well done, England. Amber, outside of shipwreck treasure, for our kids that are keen to learn more, you guys have a website. Do you have a social media presence? Where can kids find out more about Mingan Archipelago?
Absolutely. You can follow us on Facebook. We're Mingan Archipelago National Park Reserve on Facebook. We have a great website as well, but to stay up to date on the latest and greatest things happening in the park, we're usually a little bit quicker to post on Facebook. So give us a follow there and you'll be up to date on everything that's going on here.
Fantastic. I just put the website in the chat. We can find Facebook readily enough for all our classes. And Amber, I just want to thank you so much for your passion, expertise, all of it today. It's been a wonderful journey and can't wait to do it again with you in French in just about 25 minutes. So thank you from now. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone at home. If you want to yell and scream and annoy the principal, you have our permission. See you soon. And